Hey, good morning. It's Chris Cass. My name's Chris Abraham, and if you hear what sounds like a forest fire or a brook or a lake or a deluge or the crackling of tinfoil, that is not what is happening. I am again in Penrose Park, and I am surrounded by a water feature, and this water feature is the kind of water feature where there's flagstones, is that right? And the water comes up from the ground and little kids play in it. So it is a water feature for little kids, but it's also aggressively tranquil because it's very loud. But it is a nicer sound, methinks, than the traffic from the street. My name's Chris Abraham. This is Chris Cast, Season 2, Episode 29. And today's podcast will be a rant about 9/11 and a rant about Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan, the publicity that Afghanistan has been getting, the end of the war, how Biden has been portrayed, how Trump has been portrayed, how Obama has been portrayed, and how George W. Bush has been portrayed. And I'm even going to take a chance and go into the world of dealing with the audacity, absurdity, my incredulity that people are saying we can't leave Afghanistan, a war, because of women and girls. I'll be right back after the advertisement, and I'll talk to you soon. Love you guys. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's where I started my podcast. It's where I edited my podcast. It's where I put sound design into my podcast. And it's where I monetize my podcast. And it's from where I share my podcast to every single other podcast platform. It's the place that I decided is the easiest and best place for me to podcast. Thank you. Check it out. Welcome back. This is Chris Abraham, Chris Cast, Season 2, Episode 29, 29 en français, 29 in Spanish. Yikes. Is it 20? 29. I think it's 29 is 29 in German, but I might be wrong. 29, 29, 29, 29. Anyway, welcome back. My name's Chris Abraham. When should I go to Season 3? Should I go to Season 3 after Episode 30? Should all episodes be 30, all seasons be 30 episodes long? Please tell me. You can reach me for comment by either emailing me at chris@abraham.su, text me at 1-202-352-5051. You can also reach me at Chris Abraham on Twitter, at Chris Abraham on Facebook, at Chris Abraham on YouTube, and all those other fun places. So please let me know whether it should be, whether I should end the season after the next episode, or even end the season after this episode. And after you listen to my rant, maybe you'll suggest that I should just end the podcast. I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Chris Abraham, Chris Cast Season 2, Episode 29. My name is Chris Abraham, and I live in sexy South Arlington, Virginia. I'm at the corner of Columbia and Barton Street, Columbia Pike and Barton Street, in what's called my little haven. This is my Jardin du Luxembourg. This is my Central Park. And all it is a bunch of French light, powder-coated green iron two-tops with a variety of powder-coated dark green, I would say forest green, metal chairs. And then there's this water feature that sounds like there's a forest fire in the vicinity. And there are people here, and there's places to sit, and there are wooden benches, and the ground is covered with red gravel, I would say red sand. There are trees, and there are plenty of seats. And also, everywhere that there is a lighting fixture, a little lighting pole, there are 2 AC plugs. So that's pretty great. I can have all the benefits of a serene existence. And also sometimes there's little kids playing here, and other times there's dudes with giant loud Bluetooth speakers, and sometimes there's crazy people, and sometimes there's awesome people to talk to, and sometimes people leave me the fuck alone so I can just do shit like this for you guys. Anyway, I will get to my rant after this break. Come visit me. I'm almost always here. I'm either here at what's called Penrose Square Park, or I'm in the Starbucks across the driveway, which is sort of a street, but across the way there's a Starbucks. Or I'm in the Giant, generally at the Giant Pharmacy, or I am at a place called Idito's Coffee and Social House, which is up, if you go up Columbia Pike from Penrose Square Park, and then you take a left at Walter Reed, and you go past Rite Aid / Walgreens, and you go past the shady, never looks open nail salon. You, on the left side of Walter Reed, you will see Idito's Cafe and Social House. Say hello to Z, say hello to Akeem, say hello to Symphonia, and say hello to me. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Here's the meat of the episode. Season 2, Episode 29, Chris Cast. Alright, I am anti-war. My dad was anti-war. My dad was a Marine. Luckily, he was in a Marine between Korea and Vietnam. So he went to Paris Island, he became a Marine, and then he actually became a telephone lineman. And he would scramble up telephone poles, and he would, at least that was his cover story. He had a bunch of tattoos. One was a USMC tattoo, the other one was a duck, and he told me that was another USMC tattoo. They were both on his forearms, and he hated them. I think he had something on his shoulders too. I wish I didn't have aphantasia, because then I'd remember these things. So I'm against war to the extent that I probably would have supported maybe World War II. I kind of go with what the Catholic Church defines as a just war. I would, and just isn't, let me be clear, a just war is never using war to save women and children, right? It's never, that's never a good enough rationality because it's never used authentically. But I digress. I am spoiling the rest of the podcast. But since this is a rant, That's all right. It's not a rant, it's Afghanistan. So, to the point where I was in JROTC in high school, and if you can look another podcast up for that, but in my JROTC, we did serious Op 4 training. We were wee little commandos from 13, I guess, to 18, 12 to 18. We were little commandos, and we ran around with rubber AK-47s until the National Guard gave us real M16s with blank adapters and blanks. And I got an M60 with blank adapters and blanks. My dad was really unhappy with me going into JROTC because JROTC is a clear path to going to the military. And to that, Dad, you should have been a better father. I wouldn't have, and had more kids, and didn't move to Hawaii. But that's another digression. We'll go into my mommy and daddy issues when I get way more comfortable with my mommy and daddy issues. So, my dad was like, you got to get him out of JROTC. My mom's like, why don't you talk to him? He's like, well, I'm a deadbeat dad, and I don't ever talk to my son because I don't think I have anything to say to him. Well, that sucks to be you, my mom says. Anyway, let's get away from the mommy and daddy issues and get back to this. So, never had that conversation. I kind of got it out of my system after my two cult of personality commander heroes, co-commanders Charles Among and Eric O, left as commanders, and then I went to wrestling, and then I was never in any army type of thing outside of DC and being a contractor and doing a little bit of spooky stuff. But aside from that, I was never a spook or a military guy or in the army or working for any sources. Closest thing I got to that was working at the CIO of the Treasury, and that was really only the intranet, so that's not anything interesting. Although it was my only time I've ever had clearance of any sort. So then I went to, graduated from high school, went to GW, and then studied abroad in England junior year at University of East Anglia. And then the attack on Baghdad, the first Gulf War, happened, and I got a rare phone call from my dad. And when you get phone calls in 1990, 1991 in England at University of East Anglia, when you live on campus, you don't have a phone in your dorm, you don't have a phone in your room, you don't have a cell phone. There's a community phone, and you get a note that your dad is on the phone. And so I talked to him, and my dad was all like, if they do a draft to draft you to Iraq, you and I are going to bail. He lived in Hawaii. He was living in Chinatown, Oahu, near Waikiki, near downtown, anyway, if you know Oahu, you know Chinatown. He actually had an apartment in Waikiki. His office was in Chinatown. He was a photographer. He said, we're going to leave everything and we're going to move to Tahiti, or Samoa, Tahiti. He said French Tahiti, to dodge the draft. So, just to let you know, the ethos of my family is very anti-war. My mom, when I was in her belly, which would be for the 9 months before March 8, 1970, my mom with me in her belly, so I protested the Vietnam War. My mom and I, with me in her belly, protested the Vietnam War in New York City in 1969, 1970. So now, after the break, I'm going to go into the main course of the meat of the conversation. Thanks for being here. Thanks for indulging me. Mahalo. Hey there, Chris Cass, Chris Abraham, Season 2, Episode 29. I'm going to take a sip of my espresso. And, nice. And tell you that here in beautiful, sexy South Arlington, Virginia. Oh, it's also a dog park, so that's cool. In sexy South Arlington, Virginia, it is 64 degrees and mostly sunny. So it is going to be a goddamn beautiful day. So I don't mean to rain on your parade. If today's a beautiful day where you are, and you don't want to hear me go into the main course, the meat and potatoes of the episode, then hit pause now and save it for a rainy day. Okay, so first of all, before I go into the meat and potatoes, here's my legalese preface, all right? My preface is I support immigration. I support migrants. I have chosen sexy South Arlington, my neighborhood, because it's completely diverse. Most of my building is 2/3 of my building is made up of Mongolian immigrants. I would say the other half of that remaining 1/3 is I guess Ethiopians and people from Central and South America, people from Mexico, and then the rest are like young business people and people from the local. Like 1,000 yards away, 1 kilometer away, there is an army base. So there's lots of bouncing baby grunts who are at the is it the Henderson base? Anyway, so that's the makeup of my neighborhood. There's black folks, there's lots of Ethiopians, there's tons of Koreans, South Koreans. I don't think there's that many North Koreans, but I've never asked. There are lots of Ethiopians, like I said. Lots of people from Salvador, El Salvador, San Salvador, Guatemala. And, honestly, before I start the rant, I love it, man. I love it. Oh, there's lots of Afghanis here, too, turns out. And that's what my preface is going to be about. Like, I'm totally psyched that a Brazilian Afghanis are immigrating to America. I was a huge supporter. I mean, it was before my time. At 5 years old, I didn't know. But, like, one of my best friends, I mean, I hope we're best friends, is Min Lei, the noted childhood children's book author, Min Lei. I mean, love him to death, and I supported the immigration and migration of the what I called Montagnards, but are now called Hmong, and Vietnamese people. Anybody who collaborates with us as an invading army deserves to get a golden ticket. I mean, if you look at it my way, America invades countries that don't want to be invaded. And so then we find a bunch of people who are willing to turn against their entire country, become turncoats, and if you will, betray their country and become agents of America. I mean, we deserve to give those betrayers a little bit of love, because they're going to be slaughtered by the people when we finally leave them in disarray. That is a little foretaste about what I'm going to talk about. But I think anytime we go shit all over another people's country, under the guise of saving moms and girls and women, under the guise of exporting democracy, and under the guise of exporting egalitarianism and modernism and the modern world and freedoms and liberties and feminism and the American way. We need to realize that there's going to be a huge fall from grace from that, because 90% of the entire world don't want any of that. And I'll go into this incredibly controversial thing, but I actually felt emboldened because I was reading. I knew that finally the New Yorker would stop being such a pussy and start publishing anti-war screeds after everything was over, so that they wouldn't actually hurt anybody's feelings, wimps. But in the issue that is the issue of the New Yorker. Let's see, that I just finished reading, which is super awesome. I highly recommend it. It is the September 13th issue, 2021, and that issue has an amazing article. That is about, it is called, The Reporter at Large, the Other Afghan Women, and it is amazing. It says, the beginning of it is, more than 70% of Afghans do not live in cities. In rural areas, life under the U.S.-led coalition and its Afghan allies became pure hazard. Even drinking tea in a sunlit field or driving to your sister's wedding was a potentially deadly gamble. I mean, it was really appalling. And I have some amazing quotes that I want to share with you before we go into it. So the first one that I have, and this is in reverse order, and these are all quotes from that article, so bear with me. I will start reading them after the break. Chris Cass, Season 2, Episode 29. This is from Other Afghan Women, in the September 13th episode of The New Yorker by Anand Gopal. Quote, all the women I met in Sangin, though, seem to agree that their rights, whatever they might entail, cannot flow from the barrel of a gun, and that Afghan communities themselves must improve the conditions of women. During my visit to Helmand, Black Hawks under his command were committing massacres almost daily. 12 Afghans were killed while scavenging scrap metal at a former base outside Sangin. Sanjan. 40 were killed in an almost identical incident at the I drew over it, at the Army's abandoned Camp Vialid. 20 people, most of them women and children, were killed by airstrike at the Garesh Bazaar. Afghan soldiers were being held prisoner by the Taliban at a power station, were targeted and killed by their own comrades in an airstrike. So women and children were killed. The ground bleeding and moaning. Another witness said many small children, according to villagers. At least 50 civilians were killed. Later I spoke on the phone with an Afghan army pilot who had just relieved. He told me, I asked the crew why they did this, and they said, we knew they were civilians, but Camp Bastion, a former British base that had been handed over to the Afghans, gave orders to kill them all. We spoke to Army firing upon crowded Central Market in Garesh, killing scores of civilians. Nevertheless, many Helmandis seemed to prefer Taliban rule, including the women I interviewed. It was as if the movement had won only by default, through the abject failures of its opponents. To To locals, life under the coalition forces and their Afghan allies was pure hazard. Even drinking tea in a sunlit field or driving to your sister's wedding was a potentially deadly gamble. After the bombing, Mohammed's brother traveled to Kandahar to report the massacres to the United Nations and to the Afghan government. When no justice was forthcoming, he joined the Taliban. Occupiers were simply called Americans. Pizarro, the woman from a nearby village, recalled, quote, "There were two types of people, one with black faces and one with pink faces. When we see them, we get terrified," unquote. The coalition portrayed locals as hungering for liberation from the Taliban, but a classified intelligence report, anyway, I excerpted these things via camera, so please forgive these weird excerpts. Quote, "Some British officers on the ground grew concerned that the U.S. was killing too many civilians and unsuccessfully lobbied to have American special forces removed from the area. Instead, troops moved from around the world poured into Helmand, including Australians, Canadians, and Danes. But villagers couldn't tell the difference. When I asked Shakira and other women from the valley to reflect on Taliban rule, they were unwilling to judge the movement against some universal standard, only against what had come before. They were softer," Pizarro said. They were dealing with this, Pizarro, the woman who lived in a neighboring village, said, "They were dealing with us respectfully. The women described their lives in the Taliban as identical to the lives under Dado and the Mujahideen, minus the strangers barging through the doors at night and the deadly checkpoints." The collapse of Ghani's government orphaned a generation of globalized smartphone-using urban Afghans who had been protected for 2 decades by NATO security. Some of those who squeezed into flights who barely had time to consider their sudden transformation into refugees. Quote, "I fought my family, my community, and my society to get where I was a month ago," Fatima Faizi, a reporter for the Times, tweeted from exile. "Now I live out of a backpack. It feels like you fall off a cliff. All your bones are shattered, but you have no energy to say you are in pain." So, I don't know. I feel like what happened in Afghanistan was that we basically, let's say China or let's say the Afghanis invaded America. If you go back to the wonderful world of Red Dawn, I'll talk about that, what it would look like if Afghanistan were to invade America, the United States, in the next section. Hey there, Season 2, Episode 29, Chris Cast. My name's Chris Abraham. So, did any of you guys see the 1980s or the 2000 version of Red Dawn, where a combination of Cubans, South Americans, Venezuelans, and Russians, maybe Chinese, I don't know, invade America via paratrooper and via tactical nuke and take over the country, only to be foiled by a ragtag bunch of Mujahideen type ragtag freedom fighters who were terrorists to the invading army. Like, basically, Red Dawn was basically our attack on Afghanistan. It was sort of a reflection of how the Americans would stand up to an invading army after being motivated by what we at the time thought were the amazing pluckiness of the Mujahideen, aka Taliban. So, here's what would happen if we were invaded by a completely superior force in America. Basically, New York, San Francisco, maybe Miami, maybe Los Angeles, maybe Chicago would be forced into being extremist fundamentalist Muslims. So but only the city people. The the city people would be the only people worthy of conversion because they're the only people who are intelligent, who are not, who know where their who know where their bread is buttered, who understand that you just have to do what you got to do, and who might not, in fact, care that much about the U.S. Constitution. Let's compare the U.S. Constitution, or the Bible, if you will, to the Quran and tribal beliefs. Tribal beliefs, of course, being the Constitution, and the Quran being the Bible, the faith-based thing. And so, even though the cities, New York City is Kabul, LA, let's say, is Helmand Province, and those are places that the Afghans, the Chinese, or whatever, have been able to take over. They've been pretty easy because they are restricted, they are urban, they're dense, and the people are by and large beholden only to money, and not necessarily to strong moral, ethical, spiritual, or patriotic beliefs, right? So even though people would be devastated, they would find ways of making themselves useful for their occupying army. In other words, they would have betrayed America, right? So here's one analogy. Anybody who sides with the invading force is, by definition, a traitor, right? So every single person who is going to immigrate into America has betrayed their government, has betrayed their nation, because we invaded the country. We weren't invited in order to. The leadership of Afghanistan never invited America in to help them defend against a horde of Taliban. Even Vietnam had more of that. Even Korean War had more of that. South Vietnam desperately wanted the help of an international coalition to help fight against the North Vietnamese and against Chinese imperialism and against Russian influence. So I can get that, but we in a rage of vengeance and opportunistic vim and vigor after 9/11, we chased one man and his small little band of quasi-terrorists, who were in fact all racially Saudi, into and more associated with Pakistan than Afghanistan. We chased them into the mountains of Afghanistan, ignored a number of agreements that the Taliban offered in order to give Osama bin Laden up, and decided to take out our rage and fill our coffers with a new war. This was 2 years before the war in Iraq, the attack, the assault on Baghdad, which I won't go into this time. So everybody who collaborated with America, American intelligence, American army, became American-trained commandos, became American-trained militia, went into government, supported command and control, logistics, even, anybody who, so let's make this analogy. Everybody who, this was the equivalent of collaborating with the Nazis in France. Nazis come in to France, and everybody who collaborated with them, at the end of the day, you don't consider the collaborators heroes. You consider the French underground the heroes, right? The French do. I guess the Nazis didn't. But so generally the people who are invaded take up arms against the invader. It's the traditional thing to do. When you are attacked by a completely superior force. All right, so let's get over the political part where I go ahead and say that my when I went ahead and equated my own country, which I love. I don't love my fighting monsters abroad. I don't admire that part. I don't admire the part that. But heck, the only reason the value of the dollar is so high is because we are the new Rome, or I would say even we might even be the new Genghis Khans. So, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't mind. I'm actually in the middle of spring cleaning in the fall my apartment, and I have 1 million bags, and I will be giving 1 million bags to the local optician. And I think it's like Eye Care Optique, Eye Care, EYECARE Optique. They're right around the corner here, and they're collecting things for the Afghan refugees, because Virginia is where all the refugees are coming. A lot of them we will get. We received tons of refugees during the Afghan War against the Russians, against the Soviets. So we will, and I'm happy about that, man. Afghanis are freaking amazing. Such a great people. I mean, across the board. I can't get enough of them. But yeah, so that is what I think. I think that what we did for the last 20 years is we improved the life of a modicum of urbane people who cottoned to the alphabet agencies and cottoned to the NGOs, which is also an alphabet agencies. The non-government organizations received tons of money, from whom, I guess, donations, and from, Department of Defense, Department of State, CIA, DIA, NRO, the British, everybody. And their jobs was to do a Montagnard-esque Hearts and Minds offensive to make as many STEM-obsessed, robot-making women and girls as humanly possible. And that's really awesome. But the moment winning a war in Afghanistan is completely impossible. It always has been, always will be. So what you need to do is you need to make those girls amazing, educate them, get them exported to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, University of Chicago, Stanford, etc., and get them out of there. Every 4 years, you need to grab another bunch of hearts and mind, pro-American Afghani urbanes, cosmopolitans, and you need to get them out of there. For the last 20 years, every year you need to harvest the brain trust, the true blue American capitalist ambition meritocracy people. You need to grab them, take them out, and you need to make them start an information war based on self-imposed exile. Leaving them in there for obviously what just happened is no way to go about business. Over the last 20 years, you could have exfilled over time thousands of Afghans. The people who were not intellectual could have come here and had the option of joining up in the service and being trained at Monterey and becoming experts in multi-languages, become part. I mean, we need people who speak Pashtun. We need people who speak Arabic. We need people who know the Quran. We could have harvested both poppies and Afghanis. We could have completely Americanized them. We could have started their American dream here, and we could have protected them over time from the guaranteed 100% always true, never a doubt. I mean, on the first day, I wish I had written it down, but on the first day when we invaded with guns and knives and bombs. Guns and knives and bombs in your head, zombie, zombie. Like crazy. So, we killed women, we killed children, we killed babies, We bombed places. And here's another thing. You cannot make the excuse, well, the terrorists hide in the schools and the hospitals, so we had to bomb the schools and the hospitals because it's inhumane that they hide behind ladies and girls and babies and NICUs. It's not our fault that we had to bomb them. It's their fault that they were hiding behind babies and girls and child care centers and nurseries and schools and madrasas, and we knew where the bad guys were, and it's their fault that they're being surrounded by civilian babies and child. That's acceptable losses. No, can't do that. It's upon us to not do that. That is our bad. Are we the baddies? I'll rant some more after this break. Hey, this is Chris Cast, Season 2, Episode 29. This is a little later cast interjection of a segment. So I think I lost track of something with regards to talking about when the Afghans take over America. Let me go into that real quick and see if I can't shoehorn this into the podcast when I publish it in about an hour. So, let's go back to Red Dawn, right? Red Dawn, take over America. It's never the city people who fight off invaders. It's always the rural people. The rural people are attached to the land. The rural people have multi-generational relationship with their families, their history, that awful, awful loaded white supremacist word heritage. They feel heritage. They work the land. They care about the land. They care about their church, their community, their town. I know this sounds like idyllic bullshit, but I'm trying to paint it up as being they live a tribal life. They live a tribal life. They have warlords. In America, we have warlords. We call them sheriffs, right? Sheriffs are our warlords. Maybe mayors are our warlords. And we have millions and millions of guns in this country. And here's the reason why my best friend Mark is wrong when he doesn't think that a population with lots of guns can drive off a modern, committed, modern armed force is for the exact reason why the Taliban drove us off, no matter what we say. First of all, 80% of all the 3% of Americans who, or 1% of Americans who are, will be, and have been military soldiers, vets, even like command and control lines, all those folks are pro-Second Amendment, pro-Constitution. I mean, heaven forbid if they do a real purity test on soldiers. All of them took a pledge to support and defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. There isn't anybody in public service who has pledged to support the government, who has pledged to support the president, who has pledged to support their governor, their mayor, their senator, their congressperson. The only thing that is asked to be pledged to is to support and protect the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. So, clearly, if the U.S. government tells you to attack your own population, you are going to be like, who are you? The Constitution does not say to attack the local population. And the reason why we left Vietnam, and the reason why we left Korea, and the reason why we left Afghanistan and Iraq is because public opinion never has the heart, and I'm talking about global public opinion, national public opinion, domestic public opinion, NATO, allies, even United Nations public opinion. They do not have the will or the cojones or whatever to commit the kind of public, even private, crimes against humanity, war crimes against their own people to make a war like that absolutely winnable. There would literally need to be the kind of crushing oppression that the Germans made upon the defiant people of Germany, the people who didn't fit in, right? Obviously the Jews, the Roma, some Catholics, LGBTQ, people with developmental disabilities, all those people, right? You need to excise those people. You need to kill them. Imprisoning them just makes them martyrs. Killing them in public when they get power makes them martyrs. It's and the kind of people who run the media, the kind of people who run citizen organizations and civics organizations and so forth are not the kind of people who are generally considered to be the vet class. So that'll be really hard, like in the same way that it's really hard to tell who the enemy is. If America were to be taken over, it would be impossible to know who your friends are, who your enemies are, and who's just lying in wait to go ahead and frag you. Fragging is this term that I heard about in Vietnam, where if your commanding officer is enough of a dick, you will literally throw a grenade in his tent, his hooch, and kill him off, because the fog of war. And so, man, if anybody ever tried to take over the United States, those millions and millions of firearms would actually become pretty useful, because all you need to do is bring the invading force to the point where they need to start exterminating hundreds of thousands of Americans, and it'll be just the same Afghan situation. America's the same. It's a vast land. It's a dangerous land. It's a mountainous land. It's a vast land, and even with complete coverage of satellites and drones and so forth, it's still impossible to know when the enemy can completely hide under the guise of being a friend. So the same thing happened when we were in Afghanistan. And to refer back to those Sun Tzu quotes that are either before or after this, it's much easier to provide for yourself if you are a ragtag army who has a really, really rich attacker, because it's much easier to steal from Americans as Mujahideen and Taliban to become enriched than it is from Americans to steal from Taliban. Because all the stories I read about rural Afghanistan is it's dirt poor. And what it doesn't have poverty, where it isn't impoverished, the ability to make money from that has been destroyed by a constant fear of drones, a constant fear of bombing, bombings having happened, and or a collapsed economy based on being occupied by a foreign government. And last but not least, city people have no understanding of how fit or fat or diabetes, like every single city person has a I don't know if you ever gone to caricatures of Jews, of Japanese, of Russians, and so forth, of these awful wartime caricatures of the Jews, the Japanese, and the Russians. But these caricatures bear no resemblance to the people that actually are, Jewish, Japanese, and Russian. There are drunks in Russia. There are business people who are Jewish, and there are people who are good in math in Japan. But these are not the definitions of the people. 77% plus of peoples are rural, or semi-rural, or exurban, or suburban. And these people, they're just not like fat, sweet tea guzzling, cracker barrel eating, diabetes, fat, Walmart shopping yahoos. That is the same kind of awful caricature that that very quickly could be absolutely misunderstood during any tactical or strategic plan for any type of takeover of the American land. In the same way, I can't tell you every single one, save one, of my friends who've been deployed abroad to the Middle East, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, consider, well, I guess Afghanistan is South Asia, but whatever the case, we call it the Middle East. Whatever the case, they call them pedophiliacs, they call them people who have sex with people in their unit against their will. They talk about all the goat sex they have and llama sex and all the depravities that they are and how stupid they are, how ignorant they are, how backward ass they are, how illiterate. You cannot hear a BBC, an NPR, anything right now without talking about how illiterate the general Afghani is. Illiterate. Where I come from, that's insulting. Anyway, that's why when you try to take over a country these days, nobody knows anything about Islam. Nobody knows things like the painting over of all those advertisements in Kabul is not about dunking on feminist women. It's about the fact that Islam has a culture of not representing people in iconography, in painting, no reproduction of people in advertisement, in painting, in books, on walls, in sculptures even. So that's why they tore down the Buddha, not because giant statues of Buddha were not Muhammad, peace be upon him, but because they were human representations of people, which is considered to be iconography, right? So they're iconoclasts? I don't know. But anyway, there's my continued rant. The fact is that the peoples of a country who have attachment to those countries, and I'm saying that, 400 years is enough time. It's not, and think about Afghanistan. Those people, a lot of tribes and tribal groups in Afghanistan have been attached to the land for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. And Americans, man, we've only been connected to this land since the 1600s. And we're pretty connected to that land. I'm not. I could care less where I live. But on that note, I will let you go. I will see where I'll shoehorn this, and I'll talk to you soon. I think that this is a 3-hour episode. Talk to you soon. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Welcome back. This is Chris Cass, Season 2, Episode 29. I am not anti-American. I am anti-war. I am anti-using war as, you do not civilize people at the end of a spear. What you do is you create future terrorists. So if we're in the business of fighting terrorism, if constant war, constant bombing, the reason why we left 28 billion, $99 billion worth of gear on the field in Afghanistan is twofold. One, the war, we had such air superiority and weapon superiority that we weren't getting blowed up enough. I know the word is blown up, but I like saying blowed up. We weren't getting blowed up enough. We were not blowing up enough Humvees. We were not blowing up enough C-130s. We were not blowing up enough troop carriers, enough F-35s, F-22s. We were not blowing up enough stuff. So the first thing is we needed to leave all that stuff there so we can deal with our pandemic stagnation, and we can deal with our pandemic, if you will, inflation by ordering another $1 trillion worth of replacement hardware. So that's number one reason. Number two reason is that it's really bad to have to fight people with 30-year-old AK-47s and 40-year-old Stingers and 50-year-old RPGs. So if we drop people 300,000 AR-15s, maybe some of them will work. Sorry, not AR-15s, M16s, M4s. If we drop them enough munitions, weapons, and so forth, and hey, you know what? They can trade in all those Hummers for Toyota Tacomas, so there's no problem there. And so that'll be good, right? So what we're doing is we found a way to provide, we found a loophole for providing weapons, ammunition, and vehicles to Afghanistan, to the Taliban, to ISIS-K, to the biggest frenemy that we have, Pakistan. We're even going to go ahead and supply weapons, hopefully, to make sure that it's going to be a viable fight with Iran. Iran needs an upgrade, right? We need to, and maybe it'll filter to Libya. Maybe it'll filter. Hey, you know what? Maybe all that hardware will find its way to Syria, so we can continue our shadow war against the Syrians and the Russians, our proxy war against the Russians. Very interesting. So, those are the two reasons. One is to, it's sort of like, what is it like? It's like handicapping, right? It's like if it's not a fair fight, then you go ahead and you tie a hand behind your back, or you tie two hands behind your back, or you give, or it's like a sword fight where you've unarmed your sword opponent, and so you allow him time to go. You provide him a sword off your wall. You provide him a lot of swords. You provide him, let's see. Be right back. All right, I'm going to use two sources. One will be New York Post, which we know is sus. The U.S. gave the Afghan military an estimated $28 billion in weaponry between 2002 and 2017, including 7 brand new helicopters delivered to Kabul just a month ago. The Taliban has seized U.S. weapons left in Afghanistan worth billions, possibly including 600,000 assault rifles, 2,000 armored vehicles, 40 aircraft, including Black Hawks. In just 2 years, the U.S. gave 7,035 machine guns, 4,702 Humvees, 20,000 hand grenades, 2,500 bombs, 1,400 grenade launchers, 2,000 armored vehicles, 40 aircraft, including Black Hawks, scout attack helicopters, Scan Eagle military drones, according to Forbes, just a lot of stuff. 75,998 vehicles, 208 aircraft, armored personnel carriers, the M113A2, cost of $170,000 each. M577A2 carrier cost $333,333 each. Mine-resistant vehicles from $500,000 each. Recovery vehicles, medium-range tactical vehicles, Humvees, fast attack combat. Anyway, so it was both monetary and tactical reasons, the reasons why all that stuff was left behind. So when I was going around the world taking photographs, I was there with my friend Anne Broussard, and we were driving around the island, and I stopped to swim with dolphins on Oahu on the leeward coast. And while I was away from the car, someone came and stole all of my camera equipment from my trunk. What it required me to do is go out and find replacement. I spent thousands of dollars before an already expensive trip buying replacement camera equipment. There you go. It's an opportunity to buy $28 billion to $99 billion, $100 billion worth of new refurbished modern contracts. It's going to be a boondoggle for every senator, every congressman and woman, every mayor, every governor with regards to the next couple news cycles. As they get bids, get contracts, it's going to jack up the employment for people in that space. It's going to be at least a temporary plug in the hole, known as we're not in any wars right now. And it'll allow us to buy the newest, most amazing stuff, I guess, as we prepare to enter a hot war with, I don't know, where's that place from Black Hawk Down? Anyway, there's any number of places we can get into a war, including China and Syria and Iran and Afghan 2, Electric Boogaloo, or Iraq 3, My Titty in a Tree. So, I am so happy that it's over. There was no good way of doing it. And in the next section, I will compare it to a bad marriage. Hey there, hi there, ho there, I'm as happy as can be. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. My name's Chris Abraham. It's Chris Cast, Season 2, Episode 29. Happy to have you here. Happy to see you here. Happy you're here. You're one of you're an elite. You're an elite of only an estimated 23 audience, and a total of combined all of my podcasts, which are in the Brazilians, 4.6 thousand listens. So you are part of an elite. You are the creme de la creme. This is episode, as I said before, 29 and 29 and 29. So happy to have you here. Anyway, so I was in a relationship with a wonderful girl. She only dated me. She didn't want to date me. She was brokenhearted from being separated, from not being able to have the babies she wanted. Lots of other stuff, like love her to death. I loved her so much. She was an amazing person, but she was broken. She was hurt. I should have always known that. She's okay now. She's great now. She's always been strong, even at her worst. She was functional. She was strong. She was amazing. She was funny. She always laughed. But she said she couldn't resist me. So we ended up in a multi-year relationship, during which time I even lived with her. And you know you're going to break up a long time before you break up. I knew we were going to break up. She knew we were going to break up. She had a different timeline for when we were going to break up. I broke up 6 months before she was going to dump me. When I asked her, I'm like, you really want to break up with me, don't you? And I kind of like, there was no coercion, but I kept on pressing her at the pool. We're both in bikinis, and I pressed her and I said, you really want to break up. You're tired of me, tired of my shit. You're done. She finally agreed. And I'm like, okay, well, there's going to be a short transition period. No. By the next day, by the next couple of days, everything was packaged. She's like, come over here, get your shit. And it was over. There are tons of people, and that wasn't even a marriage, right? So there are tons and tons of people who are married, who know that their spouse has been talking about divorce, has been threatening divorce, and even says to them, I'm breaking up with you. And still, they don't call a lawyer, they don't get their stuff in order, they don't deal with their finances, they don't get counsel, they don't do anything. And then the day everything is missing from the house, and they receive a summons of divorce or whatever it's called, they're completely surprised. They I know you talked about it, but I never thought it would happen. I mean, Trump said that we were leaving Afghanistan. Biden said we were leaving Afghanistan. I mean, even Obama said that we should leave Afghanistan. If I know that I'm getting dumped, I make plans, right? I knew in my heart of hearts that it was never going to be a forever. I knew that my girlfriend at the time, who I was talking about, was just using me for my body and my wit and my charm, and as a friend and as someone to spend time with and as someone to be with and travel with. I was a buddy slash. I was also in some ways I was suicide watch in a very kind of modest way. She was not having a hard time. She wasn't having a good time, and she needed somebody, and I needed someone too. I had so much fun, no regrets. She civilized me, so many good experiences with her, but then it was over, and I was completely surprised. I had sort of done the breaking up, but I basically empowered her to do what she wanted the entire time. The entire time, first of all, our relationship with Afghanistan is completely Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, we abducted her. I wouldn't say we raped. We raped Afghanistan. We raped Afghanistan, and then we were surprised when the moment Afghanistan had a chance to betray us with extreme prejudice and tell us to get the fuck away. We were surprised how quickly everything fell apart. I mean, we shouldn't be at all surprised with how quickly everything fell apart. It was not only planned, but it was definitely in the history books. It was easily in the history books based on what happened with Genghis Khan. It was in the history books based on what happened with the British. It was in the history books with regards to what happened with the Soviets. And it was a foregone conclusion with us. Now, in a second, I'm going to read you a little bit of Rudyard Kipling and a little bit of Sun Tzu, and then we'll be done. All right? This is Chris Cass, Season 2, Episode 29. My name's Chris Abraham. Here's some great Sun Tzu quotes for you to enjoy the afternoon away with. And these all have to do with my perception of what's going on in Afghanistan, what happened in Afghanistan, and all that other fun stuff. All right? Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. It is the rule in war, if our forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, to surround him in 5 to 1, to attack him if twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2. No ruler should put troops into the field merely to gratify his own spleen. No general should fight a battle simply out of pique. If it is to your advantage, make a forward move. If not, stay where you are. Anger may in time change to gladness. Vexation may be succeeded by content. But a kingdom that has once been destroyed can never come again into being, nor can the deed ever be brought to life, back to life. Confront them with annihilation, and they will then survive. Plunge them into a deadly situation, and they will then live. When people fall into danger, they are often able to strive for victory. That's huge. That's huge. People, it's just not as easy as hiring a bunch of robots from Boston Robotics and assuming that if your population become defiant, that you'll be able to crush them with modern weapons, modern weaponry, and modern spycraft. I mean, it's a perfect example. America lost because of heart, because of heart, because of the lack of commitment, and because America committed crimes against humanity and war crimes all the time against civilians, all the time. There was just no commitment to completely crush a primitive-esque country in order to win a war that's unwinnable. So here's a great quote. The expenditure at home and at the front, including entertainment of guests, small items such as glue and paint, and some spent on chariots and armor, will reach the total of 1,000 ounces of silver per day, such as the cost of raising an army of 100,000 men. When you engage in actual fighting, if victory is long in coming, then men's weapons will grow dull and their ardor will be damped. If you lay siege to a town, you will exhaust your strength. Again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. Now, when your weapons are dulled, your ardor damped, your strength exhausted, and your treasure spent, another chieftain will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. Then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensue. Thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. It is only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war that can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Bring war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus the army will have food enough for its needs. As an aside, guys, if your country is impoverished, that doesn't help. However, I do think we dipped our beak a little bit in the opium products, in terms of raising a little bit of money from opium, from poppy fields, from etc. And probably from lithium mines, all kinds of things. But it's not a rich country. It's not a verdant country. But basically, Sun Tzu is saying, steal from the enemy. Poverty of the state, exchequer, causes an army to be maintained by contributions from a distance. Contributing to maintain an army at a distance causes people to be impoverished. On the other hand, proximity of an army causes prices to go up, and high prices cause the people's subsistence to be drained away. When their subsistence is drained away, the peasantry will be afflicted by heavy extractions. With the loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of the people will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of their income will be dissipated. While government expenses for broken chariots, worn-out horses, breastplates and helmets, bows and arrows, spears and shields, protective mantles, draught oxen, and heavy wagons will amount to 4/10 of its total revenue. Hence, a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. Once cartloads of the enemy's provision is equivalent to 20 of one's own, and likewise a single picule of his provender is equivalent to 20 from one's own. Now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger. That there may be advantage from defeating the enemy, they must have the rewards. Therefore, in chariot fighting, when 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our own flag should be substituted for those of the enemy, and the chariots mingled and used in conjunction with ours. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. This is called using the conquered foe to augment one's own strength. In war, then, let your great object be victory, not lengthy campaigns. Thus it may be known that the leader of armies is the arbiter of the people's fate, and the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. So, in other words, the Afghanis did a judo switcheroo on us. They are apparently reading Sun Tzu. They stole our gear. They stole our 300,000 Afghan warriors. They stole all of our equipment. They probably stole food. They probably stole oil and gas and petrol and diesel. And we paid them. We paid civilian fighters, indistinguishable from terrorists, indistinguishable from the Mujahideen, from the Taliban, from the freedom fighters / terrorists. We paid them living wages. We paid them salaries and so forth. And according to that article in, actually, it was an interview it was an interview on Pacifica Radio, I think. And it was an interview with, I just bought his book, so I'll do a book report later. This is a really long episode, so sorry. It was an interview with oh, come on. Would you work? Anyway, the book is called Reign of Terror. So whoever wrote Reign of Terror, it is that book. Reign of Terror. During his interview, I'm not getting So it's a book written by Spencer Ackerman. So Spencer Ackerman wrote this book, and he said that according to his research for his book Reign of Terror, how the 9/11 era destabilized America and produced Trump, he said that that a huge number of the forces that we hired, who did local work for the DIA, the CIA, the NSA, the NRO, MI6, etc., were double spies, were doing intelligence for the Taliban, for the Pakistanis, for ISIS-K, and for Iran. So I'm not even going to get into the fact as to whether or not there's going to be insurgents moving here from Afghanistan as part of the migration process. That's neither here nor there. I've got friends over there who are telling me that their job is to prevent that. I don't want to lose the baby with the bathwater, but not everybody who was a traitor against the Afghanistans on our behalf were actually traitors to the Afghanistan on our behalf. They were just, in fact, insurgents, spies, and they were double dipping, triple dipping. I wouldn't even be surprised if they were doing recon and intelligence work for the Soviets, for China, for Israel. Everybody's been dipping their beak in there, and the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So if you are an occupied people and your enemy of your enemy is your friend, that means the Taliban is your friend until you get your enemy, which is the invading army of Americans, out. Then it gets really complicated. Now, as an aside, we're going to be within the next 6 months besties with the Taliban. We're going to reframe them as the noble mujahideen who aren't that bad to women and girls compared to ISIS-K. And so the enemy of our enemy will be our friend. Ergo, the Taliban will be our friend, and the enemy will be ISIS-K / Iran / global Al-Qaeda. Anyway, I'm out of steam. I'll talk to you soon. I hope that this isn't... It's totally controversial, but I can deal with it. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. I'll be back with closing credits. Bye-bye.
Oh, thank you.
Hey there, this is Chris Cass, Season 2, Episode 29. My name's Chris Abraham. You can reach me at chrisabraham.com. You can reach me at Chris Abraham on Twitter, at Chris Abraham on Instagram, at Chris Abraham on YouTube. I'm Christopher Abraham on TikTok. I am Abraham CJ, I think, on Snapchat. I am +1 202 352 5051 on Telegram, WhatsApp, and Signal. I am +1 202 352 5051 on text and on voice. However, I'm at Chris Abraham on Skype, if anybody uses that. If you call me and I don't recognize your name, I will not answer the call. If you can leave a message on my Google Voice, which will be transcribed and sent to me as an email, and if I recognize you, but the better way is to schedule a call with me at calendly.com/chrisabraham/3015. You can, all that information, all my contact information is on chrisabraham.com/contact or the main page, chrisabraham.com. My email is chris@abraham.com. And please review me, good or bad. Give me stars, good or bad. Share me, good or bad. Write a review, good or bad. Subscribe, good or bad. Hate listen, love listen. Drop a dime into the NSA and or deplatform me. Love you a long time. I'll talk to you soon. Love and light in the morning, and auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen. À demain. Hasta la próxima. Auf Wiedersehen. I don't even remember how to say. I'll say ciao, aloha, mahalo, and goodbye.